Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Bradford B&B cleaning channel. Today was supposed to be a basic clean, but from the moment I walked in, I knew this was going to require more care than what I expected. This client reached out to me through my website, and in exchange for letting me record, I was able to capture the entire process. Now, I will admit, when I first walked in, I did not know where I was going to begin because this was supposed to be a basic clean, which was only going to take me about maybe 2 to 3 hours. But once I got in there and I was like, no, this is going to need a bit more of a deep clean, I had to change how I was going to approach this. I decided to do the counters and the stove at the same time. But even with starting with the counters, it was still a lot of gunk on there. So there were times that I had to pull out my plastic scraper just to get the gunk off. At this point, the only thing running through my head is how am I going to complete an entire deep clean in 3 hours? Well, short answer, I'm not. I had to reprioritize what was going to be the most important task. I knew the kitchen was going to need the most love and care, so I switched to doing the stove. As you can see, the stove really looked like it had not been cleaned in ages. It was definitely well used, and there was a lot of hard-on pieces that had to come off. I started by adding some water to the stove just to get some of those caked on pieces hydrated so they'll be easier to come off. Then I went in with a little bit of cleanser and my plastic spatula and started to scrape up some of those pieces that have been sitting there for so long. Now, I'm a firm believer that for these harder caked on messes, the scratch pad is your friend, okay? I went to town on that stove. I wanted to get every single piece of grime off of that thing. I wanted to look like that this was a stove that you could have home cooked meals on. It's worth having your family over. Like this was going to be such a warm and inviting space. The stove actually did start to look a little white again. You know, I had to make a couple passes and use a couple rags and kind of go back through to clean up the corners and stuff like that. But all in all, you know, the stove actually didn't take as much time as I thought it was going to. Now, this is the final result of that first counter and what the stove is looking like. I love the way these turned out. These sinks, on the other hand, now this is where a lot of the time had went. These sinks were so bad. And the client did tell me that one of the sinks, the water was just not working properly. It wasn't draining properly. So I had to go ahead and dump buckets of water into the bathroom, get fresh water from the bathroom, bring it back into the kitchen. So that added a little additional time. But I was determined to get these sinks clean, okay? I want these sinks to look like they were brand new. This sink is a great example of something that would require a couple of more treatments to get it back to its original condition. Now, because I was running out of space on my phone, I couldn't quite capture the end result of the sink, but this is the final view of the kitchen. Let me know what you guys think.